Alright guys, sorry about last night. We were a little bit excited because we finally figured out how to do this, so we'll make one in the daylight so you can see what's going on here. The key to understand here is these bolts, what they're doing is the fan is hanging from these bolts, okay? And by the fan hanging from these bolts, it puts all the weight onto the tips of these bolts, which are on this piece. So that's what we're doing, is we're transferring the weight and we're reinforcing that way, because this fan is really heavy. And so by this fan now being supported, and these bolts will go in a little bit further obviously on the finished product, but that's what all these bolts are about. Everything else out here, this is meaningless. This all here, it's meaningless, but it holds it in line. Now this bracket alone is strong enough to hold the oil cooler. Now we had to move the whole oil cooler over to the right, and that's why the bracket ran out of material and we have it looking chinksy right here. Obviously this is just for proof of concept, but the point is, when you try to lift and lower this, it can only come up, it can't go down. And when you try to push it backwards, the fan itself is actually up against the both ceiling and the air box. And it's cut in such a way, the fan is, that it matches up seamlessly with the airbox shape. So this whole thing can't really go backwards. And then to prevent it from going backwards any further, this eye here is going to be connected to a piece of all thread that goes all the way back to that bolt back behind the reservoir tank. So that eliminates the vector of this flapping forward and backward. But realistically, when the car is put together, this is up against here. So already it's essentially impossible for this to then flop backwards. So all the stress is not on the top where the fan touches against the airbox. The stress is, the force is distributed here and to the piece of all thread that goes from this corner over here to the back. And then you'll have to forgive, again, this cooler here. This has just been our mock-up cooler. It's been through hell, but we cut this cooler early on because we thought that we were going to need to have it cut. But anyway, ignore that. So the only thing that's left for debate is this corner right here, because this corner right here touches the front end of the car, we believe. And over time it would poke a hole in the front fascia of the vehicle. So we can either put like a little metal diagonal plate that would stick against the front of the car, that would guard that from obviously puncturing, because it'd be metal on metal. And then you could put, something rubber in between also. Or we could cut this off, and we're going to just leave that up to the customer, what the customer wants to do. But when it's all said and done, with this kit, there's going to be no cutting of the Setrab. You'll be able to relocate the Setrab elsewhere if you wanted to. This cut down here won't exist. And all of this is held together by this one bolt right here. So watch this, I'll show you. It's actually two bolts, but I want to show you that this bolt isn't actually what's holding it, but it's just keeping it from moving. It's the shape of the bracket. It's very profound. When you feel it in person, you'll see that it's very solid. It's like an enigma how we got it to work. Sorry about this. Okay, so you can see it still sits, and you're like, well, probably because it's fastened somewhere else. It's not actually fastened anywhere else. It's sandwiched. So if I lift up on this, your car is back to stock. Here's the whole unit. one of the things that took us a long time to figure out. Well, I can't tell you all the secrets, but what I've explained to you is only part of it. There's a couple extra little secrets that came into how we had to do these bolts and the fan and the grommets and just little nuances, but that's it right there. So what we're going to do is, let me set this down real quick. So what we're going to do is the bottom floor of this needs to be cut away a little bit. The deflector shield in the back is still going to remain, but this bottom floor back here in the back is going to be cut away. And there's your air box for those of you curious. And I want to take this time to point out the air box intake is right here behind the fan. So what we're worried about is the hot air from the oil cooler going up into the air box. So we're actually debating blocking that off. And if you've seen what Veram has done on their other cars, they actually have a little lip that sticks up and it deflects air down in. And that air that sticks up, that deflects the air down in, it brings it into the top of the air box. Show you here. If a person deflected the air downward at this crease, as Veram does, and cut a hole here in the top of this box, you would be getting cold air from the top of the car. And then what we would do is we would put in a plate that deflects the water from actually landing directly on the filter. And so the air would go around the plate and then go into the filter from the sides and from underneath and then work its way up around to the top. So that's going to be the next thing, but one thing at a time. The biggest thing that we're going to do is, what we really want to demonstrate, is that running the oil through the return line from the engine to the dry sump, we want to demonstrate that at full throttle for long, wide open throttle, durations of time, the engine doesn't get starved of oil.